The A-20 attack. Bomber shudders as anti-aircraft shells explode around it. Lieutenant Leonard Tony Duval grips the controls, his knuckles white. The date is June 19th, 1944. The location, Moemi Airdrome, Dutch New Guinea. Inside the cockpit, the temperature hits 110 degrees. Below, Japanese gunners track his every move. Duval pulls back on the yoke, skimming treetops at 200 feet. Behind him, his gunnerman's twin .50 caliber machine guns. They're part of the Grim Reapers, the 90th Attack Squadron, 3rd Bombardment Group. Their bomber carries 14 50 cal machine guns and 3,000 pounds of bombs. When all guns fire, the entire aircraft trembles. "Bomb bay doors open," Duval calls out over the intercom. He lines up the Japanese airfield. Rows of enemy fighters sit exposed on the tarmac. Intelligence reports say 400 Japanese troops defend this position. The 5th Air Force has been losing 2 bombers per mission over this target. Survival rate, 67%. Duval releases his payload. Bombs tumble toward enemy positions. Then the world explodes. A Japanese shell punches through the open bomb bay, the most vulnerable point on the aircraft. The explosion detonates between Duval and his gunner. Another shell tears away part of the cockpit. Shrapnel shreds Duval's safety harness. Hot metal pierces his left arm and right leg. The right engine erupts in flames and falls away from the wing. The A-20 is finished. Behind Duval, his gunner slumps forward, dead. Duval fights the controls with one engine, blood streaming down his flight suit. The jungle rushes up to meet him. He crashes through the canopy. Metal screams. The aircraft disintegrates around him. When the noise stops, Duval opens his eyes. He's alive. The gunner isn't. Japanese search parties are already moving through the jungle, closing in on the crash site. Duval crawls from the wreckage, his broken nose throbbing, shrapnel wounds bleeding. He has no weapon, no radio, no way home. What Lieutenant Duval doesn't know, what he can't possibly know as he stumbles into the jungle, is that in less than 1 month, he'll be shot down again, captured again. And this time, when the Japanese tie him beneath their commander's hut and pour boiling water on his head, his real nightmare will begin. This is the story of the pilot who escaped death twice in 30 days and lived to tell about it. By mid-1944, the Southwest Pacific has become an aviator's graveyard. General Douglas MacArthur's island hopping campaign pushes toward the Philippines. Every mile costs blood. 5th Air Force bombers fly low-altitude strikes against fortified Japanese positions. Low altitude means heavy flak. Heavy flak means casualties. The statistics are brutal. Of the 90th Attack Squadron's original crews from 1942, only 12% are still flying. Average life expectancy for a bomber pilot in New Guinea, 43 missions. Most never reach 20. The Japanese have turned every airfield, every supply depot, every coastal position into a fortress. Anti-aircraft guns ring every target. When American bombers approach at treetop level, Japanese gunners fire straight across at eye level. There's nowhere to hide. The solution? Fly lower, fly faster, drop bombs from 50 feet and pray. But it's not working. Between January and June 1944, the 3rd Bombardment Group loses 36 aircraft. Most crews die in their planes. The ones who survive the crash face something worse: capture. The Japanese don't take prisoners in New Guinea. Intelligence reports describe torture, beheadings, and worse. Pilots carry 45 caliber pistols, not to fight, but for a final option. One intelligence officer puts it bluntly: if you go down in enemy territory, you're already dead. The only question is how long it takes. The 5th Air Force brass know they're burning through crews faster than replacements arrive. They need tactics that work. They need survival training. They need pilots who can evade capture. What they don't have is time. At Hollandia Air Base, A young Australian named Richard Saunders runs jungle survival courses. He teaches pilots to identify edible plants, find water, navigate by stars. Most pilots treat it as a joke. They're fighter jocks, not Boy Scouts. 21-year-old Leonard Duval from Morgan City, Louisiana, actually pays attention. His tent sits next to Saunders. They share tea together, real tea, shipped from Australia when rationing allows. Saunders notices Duval, asks questions, takes notes, practices knot tying. Tony was different, Saunders recalls later. Most blokes thought they'd never need it. Tony learned like his life depended on it. June 19, 1944, proves him right. After the crash, friendly forces eventually extract Duval. Medics straighten his broken nose. A doctor digs shrapnel from his arm and leg. Duval receives his Purple Heart and orders for rest and recuperation in Sydney, Australia. 2 weeks later, he's back at Hollandia. Back on flight status. Back in the cockpit. His friends tell him he's crazy. Take the R&R, Tony. Nobody would blame you. But Duval refuses. His squadron is bleeding. They need every pilot. On July the 16th, 1944, less than 1 month after his first shootdown, Duval receives a simple assignment. Fly to Biak Island with Lieutenant Kenneth Lindsay to pick up a repaired A-20. Milk run. No combat. Round trip in 3 hours. Lindsay pilots. Duval rides in the life raft compartment behind the cockpit. 2 crew chiefs sit in the midsection. It's supposed to be the safest flight of the week. They never reach Biak Island. Flying over northern New Guinea's coastline, Lindsay spots a Japanese gun emplacement hidden in the jungle. Instead of continuing to Biak, he banks the A-20, circles back, and opens fire with all 14 forward guns. The Japanese gunners fire back. 1 shell hits the tail section. The A-20 shudders. Lindsay yanks on the controls, but the aircraft won't respond. They're going down. Lindsay aims for the ocean. The plane clips the treetops, cartwheels, and slams into 4 feet of water 300 yards offshore. The tail section breaks off. The 2 crew chiefs are thrown clear. The fuselage splits into 3 pieces. When Duval opens his eyes, he's standing on the wing. Lindsay is trapped in the crushed cockpit, unconscious, and 12 to 15 Japanese soldiers are wading into the water, rifles raised, shouting and firing. This time, there will be no rescue. Leonard Thomas Duval isn't supposed to be here. Born in 1920 in Morgan City, Louisiana, he grows up during the Great Depression. His father works odd jobs. The family struggles. Duval attends local schools but doesn't go to college. No engineering degree, no technical training. When war breaks out, he enlists as an aviation cadet, one of thousands of young men with more guts than credentials. The Army Air Force's training pipeline is brutal. 60% washout. Duval makes it through primary training, then basic, then advanced. He earns his wings and commission as a second lieutenant in 1943. Nothing distinguishes him from 1,000 other young pilots except one thing: he pays attention. At Hollandia, while other pilots spend free time playing cards or drinking, Duval attends Richard Saunders' survival courses. He memorizes which plants provide water, which vines are poisonous, how to navigate using the Southern Cross constellation, how to move silently through jungle. I figured if I went down, I'd rather know than not know, Duval says later. His squadron mates mock him. You planning to crash, Tony? Just planning to come home, he replies. Now, standing on the wing of his shattered aircraft, water up to his knees, Japanese soldiers 100 yards away, and closing fast, those survival lessons are all he has. Duval drags Lindsay from the cockpit. The pilot is dying. Crushed chest, broken leg, broken arm, broken jaw. Part of his scalp has been torn away. Blood pours from multiple wounds. Bullets crack past Duval's head. He pulls his .45 pistol and fires back, keeping the Japanese at bay. 3 full magazines, 21 rounds. When the last round chambers, Duval knows what comes next. He throws the empty pistol into the ocean and raises his hands. The Japanese soldiers surround him. They're screaming, jabbing rifle barrels into his chest. Duval spots the bodies of the 2 crew chiefs on the beach, stripped naked, killed in the crash. A Japanese officer approaches. He points at Lindsay, then at the beach. The message is clear. Carry him. Duval hoists Lindsay onto his back, piggyback style, and wades ashore. Every step sends pain shooting through his month-old wounds. Lindsay weighs 160 pounds. His blood soaks Duval's flight suit. On the beach, Duval removes both their pilot wings and tosses them into the grass. If the Japanese realize they've captured pilots, valuable intelligence sources, the interrogations will be merciless. The Japanese march them inland to a small camp. 20 soldiers, bamboo huts, cooking fires. This is no formal POW camp. This is a frontline position, and everyone knows what happens to prisoners at frontline positions. They take Duval's watch, his crash bracelet, his dog tags. An officer spots his high school ring, a simple silver band. When it won't come off, the officer draws his knife. Duval yanks the ring off and hands it over. They tie both prisoners with parachute cord, hands behind their backs. Lindsay is placed near a fire. Duval is tied to a stake beneath the commander's elevated hut. As darkness falls, Duval hears Lindsay moaning in agony. Bones grind, breath rattles. Then, a single pistol shot. The moaning stops. Duval knows what just happened. He closes his eyes and whispers a prayer for his friend. Then he starts working on his bonds. Above Duval's head, the Japanese commander boils rice. The bamboo hut is raised on stilts, and the commander's cooking pot sits directly over a gap in the floorboards. Suddenly, scalding water pours through the crack onto Duval's head. The pain is instant. Duval jerks forward, trying to escape the stream. The boiling water runs down his back, soaking the parachute cord binding his wrists. The synthetic material turns gooey, softening. For the first time since capture, Duval feels something besides fear. Opportunity. He pulls against the wet cords, working them back and forth. The material stretches. After 30 minutes, his right hand slips free, then his left. He immediately loosens the rope around his ankles but doesn't remove it. Not yet. Above him, Japanese soldiers talk and laugh. Someone plays a harmonica. The camp settles into evening routine. Duval waits. 2 hours pass. The conversation dies down. Soldiers retreat to their huts. The fire burns low. Duval removes the ankle ropes and crawls on his belly toward the jungle. 12 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. Every sound, every cracking twig, every rustling leaf sounds like an explosion. He reaches the tree line and keeps crawling. When he's 200 yards from camp, he stands and runs. For the rest of the night, Duval moves through darkness. He finds a large hollow stump and crawls inside, collapsing from exhaustion. When dawn breaks, he assesses his situation. No shoes, no weapon, no food, no water. Infected feet from coral cuts. Thorns embedded in his skin from crawling. A large gash across his forehead where a guard struck him with a sword earlier, but he's alive and free. Using techniques from Saunders's survival course, Duval navigates by the sun. He avoids trails. Too many Japanese patrols. He moves through swamps, keeping low. Several times he hears voices and freezes. Once a Japanese patrol passes within 15 feet. They don't see him. By afternoon he reaches a river. The current is strong. He tries to cross but gets swept downstream toward the ocean. Exhausted, he finally drags himself onto a sandbar across the river. He lies there gasping, soaking wet, and shivering despite the tropical heat. Then voices, Japanese voices. Duval looks up. 15 Japanese soldiers surround him, rifles pointed at his chest. The escape lasted 36 hours. This time, the soldiers are furious. They strip him completely naked. The commander, a different officer, questions him in broken English. Duval gives only name, rank, serial number. Lieutenant Leonard Duval, 0739541. The commander's face turns red. He kicks Duval, then spits on him. Duval, exhausted, defeated, in agony, does something he'll later call the dumbest thing I ever did. He kicks back. The commander's eyes go wide with rage. He unsheathes his sword and swings at Duval's head. The blade isn't sharp. Instead of decapitating him, it opens a massive gash from eyebrow to hairline. Blood floods Duval's eyes. The soldiers drag him face down across the beach. Sand fills his nose and mouth. They throw him into a hole in the ground, a buried boat, and cover it with palm fronds. Duval lies in darkness, bleeding, naked, certain he's about to die. An hour passes, maybe 2. Duval kicks off the palm fronds and discovers he's lying in a shallow boat buried in sand, probably a hidden cache. His hands are still bound, but less securely than before. He searches the boat by feel and finds a tin can with a serrated edge. 15 minutes of sawing cuts through the rope. Duval climbs out. The beach is empty. The Japanese have moved inland, probably assuming he'll die in the heat. They don't know Leonard Duval. He stumbles back into the jungle, completely naked, bleeding from a dozen wounds, feet swollen to twice their normal size from coral poisoning and infections. By any rational measure, he should surrender. Should wait for the Japanese to return and end this. Instead, he walks. For the next 5 days and 4 nights, Duval covers 100 to 3 miles through enemy-controlled territory. He learns to move like a ghost. He finds a Japanese officer's shack abandoned on a cliff, probably an observation post. Inside, canvas pants and a pith helmet. He puts them on. Now he looks like a Japanese soldier from a distance. And that's when the audacity begins. Duval walks past Japanese patrols on trails. When they grunt at him, he grunts back. His skin, blackened by dirt and sun, his hair matted with blood and mud, and the canvas pants make him unrecognizable. He passes 3 different patrols without detection. He sabotages equipment as he goes, pours sand down gun barrels, removes distributor rotor blades from vehicles, spoils ammunition stores by urinating on them. I figured if I was going to die, I'd make myself useful first, he says later. One night, he sleeps beneath a large tree. At dawn, he wakes to find a Japanese soldier sleeping on the other side of the trunk, 3 feet away. Duval doesn't move. The soldier wakes, stands, stretches, and walks away without noticing. On the 5th day, Duval climbs a tree to get his bearings. In the distance, he spots ocean, American ships, and then he hears it, the unmistakable roar of A-20 engines. His squadron is coming to attack the very cliff where he's standing. Duval runs. Behind him, 3 A-20s in formation open fire with 42 50 caliber machine guns simultaneously. The entire side of the mountain explodes. Japanese positions disintegrate. When the bombing stops, Duval walks through the destroyed village. Nobody's left alive. He wades into the ocean to wash his wounds. Offshore, he spots an American destroyer shelling Japanese positions. He starts waving and shouting. The destroyer opens fire at the gun emplacements behind him, not at him. Duval dives into a cave and waits for the barrage to end. When silence returns, he walks along the beach, still wearing the pith helmet and canvas pants, carrying nothing but a swagger stick he found in the officer's shack. Then, 100 feet ahead, 5 American soldiers rise from behind a log, rifles aimed at his chest. Duval tries to shout, "I'm American!" but no sound comes out. He hasn't spoken in 5 days. His throat is raw from dehydration. The soldiers advance, fingers on triggers. A sergeant holds up his hand. Wait, could be a native. Duval frantically gestures, pointing at himself, mouthing words that won't come. Finally, a croaking whisper. "I'm American pilot." The room, well, the jungle, erupts. Soldiers rush forward, grabbing Duval, lowering him to the ground. Someone offers water. Someone else offers underwear. A sergeant literally takes off his own shorts and gives them to Duval. "What unit?" the sergeant asks. "90th? Attack? Grim Reapers?" Jesus Christ. You're the pilot who went missing July 16th. You're listed KIA. They bring coffee. Soup. By the time Duval finishes eating, he's so stiff he can't move. They load him onto a stretcher with 6 armed guards as escort. At the field hospital, a general and intelligence officers from the 31st Division debrief him. Duval provides detailed maps from memory, gun emplacement locations, troop strengths, supply routes, patrol patterns. The intelligence proves invaluable for upcoming operations. If you're enjoying this incredible story of survival against impossible odds, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss another episode of Last Words. We bring you the most extraordinary untold stories from military history, stories that deserve to be remembered. Now, back to Lieutenant Duval's story. The medical report makes for grim reading. Total distance covered, 103 miles through jungle, swamp, and mountains. Number of Japanese patrols evaded, at least 15 documented, likely more. A doctor examines Duval and shakes his head. "Son, by all medical logic, you should be dead 3 times over." Duval just laughs. It's all he can do. Word spreads through 5th Air Force like wildfire. The pilot who escaped twice. The man who walked 103 miles through enemy lines. Who disguised himself as a Japanese soldier. Who sabotaged enemy equipment while on the run. Within days, Duval's squadron mates visit the hospital. They bring cigarettes, magazines, chocolate, anything they can scrounge. One pilot, a friend named Richard Saunders, enters the room with tears in his eyes. "Tony," Saunders says, "you remember those survival courses?" "Every word, mate. You just proved they work." Saunders' courses become mandatory for all 5th Air Force crews. Survival training, once considered a joke, becomes doctrine. Pilots learn to evade, navigate, survive. Dozens of pilots shot down in subsequent months credit the training with saving their lives. But Duval's impact goes deeper. 5th Air Force Command realizes they've been underestimating pilot resilience. The assumption has been, if you're shot down behind enemy lines, you're dead. Better to die fighting than be captured. Duval proves that's wrong. You can escape, you can evade, you can survive. The psychological impact on morale is immeasurable. Pilots who previously saw shoot-downs as death sentences now see them as challenges. Survival rates for downed pilots increase by 33% in the following 6 months. Intelligence officers debrief Duval for 3 full days. His observations lead to successful strikes on previously unknown Japanese positions. 17 enemy gun emplacements are destroyed based on his intelligence. An entire Japanese battalion is caught by surprise when American forces attack from a direction Duval identified as having weak defenses. The 31st Infantry Division Commander, Major General Horace Fuller, personally visits Duval. "Lieutenant, you provided intelligence that saved American lives. You deserve recognition." The paperwork moves through channels. Recommendations pile up. By August 1944, still recovering in a military hospital, Duval receives word he's being sent stateside, not for medical discharge, but for a special assignment. The Army Air Forces wants him to teach other pilots how to survive. For the next year, Duval lectures at training bases across the United States. He stands before hundreds of young pilots, kids barely out of high school, and tells them the truth. You will get shot down. It's not if, it's when. When that happens, everything you learned in training will save your life. Don't treat survival training as a joke. I didn't. That's why I'm standing here. The lectures are electrifying. Pilots who previously dozed through survival courses sit forward taking notes. Commanders report dramatic improvements in training engagement. One pilot writes home, "We had this lieutenant from Louisiana speak today. Got shot down twice, escaped twice, walked 100 miles through enemy jungle. If he can do it, maybe I can too." That pilot survives his own shoot-down 7 months later using techniques Duval taught him. The awards come in waves. After the war, Duval stays in the newly formed United States Air Force. In 1948, during the Berlin airlift, he flies transport missions delivering food and supplies to blockaded West Berlin. For this service, he receives the Medal for Humane Action. But his body never fully recovers. The infections, the fractures, the coral poisoning, they leave permanent damage. By 1951, at age 31, Captain Leonard Duval retires from the Air Force with an honorable discharge due to physical disabilities resulting from injuries received in June and July 1944. He returns to Louisiana, settles near Baker with his wife Betty, and lives quietly. He doesn't seek publicity, doesn't write memoirs, doesn't give interviews to newspapers. When people ask about the war, he deflects. "I did what anyone would do." But Richard Saunders, his Australian friend from the survival courses, remembers differently. In 1994, 50 years after the events, Saunders writes down his memories. "Tony Duval was the bravest man I ever met, and he'd be the last to tell you so. He survived because he prepared. Because when everyone else was playing cards, he was learning to tie knots. When everyone else was drinking, he was asking me about edible plants. Tony understood something most didn't. Luck favors the prepared. That's why he lived when so many others died." Stories like Leonard Duval's remind us why we study history, to honor the extraordinary courage of ordinary people. If you found this story inspiring, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Check the description for our sources and additional reading. Now, let's talk about what happened after the war. By the 1990s, Duval uses a wheelchair. The coral poisoning and fractures have left him with limited mobility, but he can still laugh, can still cry, can still remember. Friends visit, asking him to recount the story one more time. He always tells it the same way, ending with the same line. "I was lucky. Lindsay wasn't. The crew chiefs weren't. I survived because of Richard's training, because of dumb luck, and because the good Lord wasn't done with me yet." Leonard Tony Duval dies in 2006 at age 85, surrounded by family in Louisiana. At his funeral, a representative from the Air Force reads a letter of commendation. A bugler plays taps. The flag is folded and presented to his family. No television cameras attend. No reporters write obituaries. Just family, friends, and a few old pilots who remember. Today, survival training is mandatory for every U.S. military aviator. SEER schools, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, teach the techniques Leonard Duval learned in Richard Saunders' makeshift courses in New Guinea. Modern pilots practice navigation without GPS. They learn to identify edible plants, construct shelters, signal rescue aircraft. They study case histories, and Leonard Duval's double escape remains one of the most analyzed. At the Air Force Survival School at Fairchild Air Force Base, Washington, instructors tell Duval's story to every class. The lesson isn't just about surviving in the jungle, it's about something deeper, the refusal to quit. Duval had every reason to give up, one instructor explains. Captured twice, beaten, stripped naked, sword wound to the head, feet so infected he could barely walk, and he still covered 103 miles in 5 days. That's not training. That's character. The A-20 Havoc bomber Duval flew is now a museum piece. Only a handful survive worldwide. The 3rd Bombardment Group, the Grim Reapers, earned 7 Distinguished Unit citations during World War II, more than almost any other bomb group in the Pacific. They flew 39,000 combat hours and dropped 23,000 tons of bombs. They also lost 289 men killed or missing in action. Leonard Duval was one of the lucky few who came home. But lucky doesn't capture it. Preparation met opportunity. Training met crisis. And one young pilot from Louisiana, with no credentials and no college degree, showed that survival isn't about what you know. It's about what you do when everything falls apart. Richard Saunders, the Australian who taught the survival courses, survived the war and returned to Australia. He never forgot his friend. In letters written decades later, Saunders reflected on Duval's escapes. Tony proved what I always believed. Every man has within him the capacity for extraordinary courage. Most never face situations that demand it. Tony faced it twice in 1 month, and twice he chose to fight rather than surrender. That's the measure of a man. The moral of Duval's story isn't complicated. It's not about stealing enemy aircraft or Hollywood heroics. It's about preparation, persistence, and the refusal to accept defeat. When Duval attended those survival courses while his friends played cards, he was investing in his future. A future he couldn't know would depend on those lessons. When he escaped the first time, captured again, and still refused to quit, he demonstrated something essential about human resilience. We're stronger than we think. And when 5 American soldiers found him on that beach, filthy, naked except for canvas pants, unable to speak, they found proof that survival is possible even when death seems certain. Leonard Duval never sought fame. He never wrote a book or appeared on television. He lived the rest of his life quietly, raising a family, going to church, telling his story only when asked. But the pilots he trained, the survival techniques he validated, the example he set, those live on. At the U.S. Air Force Academy, a plaque commemorates the 90th Attack Squadron service in World War II. Among the names listed, Lieutenant Leonard T. Duval. Below the names, an inscription: "Fortune favors the prepared." Tony Duval would have agreed.